Guyana is making more lands and resources available for mineral production and investments in the natural resources sector. These initiatives are being pursued in keeping with the country's commitment to protect the environment.
The mines division has 4 sections. We have a technical section, we have a mineral processing section, we have an inspectorate section, and also a clerical section, which does most of the recording and so on, the paperwork. The mineral processing section, we look at research and development of in the mining industry, mainly to do with enhancing and improving mineral recovery. The inspectorate section, that's the main field section that does most of the inspections and the enforcement and compliance. The technical section, which is staffed by mining engineers, they are responsible more for the assistance to miners in technical aspects of the industry, and also they are responsible for overseeing particularly the mining districts. Before they start any activity pertaining to mining, they first have to have a mining permit or a license to do so. That gives them the authority to mine. And with that license or permit, there would be clauses or conditions which they would have to adhere to. And those clauses or conditions are in accordance with the Mining Act and its regulations.
I always encourage the passengers not to throw garbage out of the window.
Stop littering. Do the right thing. The urgent need for a national land use policy is recognized by the government of Guyana, and it is hoped that the plan could act as a catalyst to speed the finalization of this policy and the development of integrated land use planning in Guyana.
The Land Management Division is responsible for processing and maintaining or managing all of the country's mineral properties. By law, all minerals are vested in the state, and the GGMC is responsible or has the mandate to issue permits and properties in effect for mining. These are what we refer to as subsurface rights.
We would deal with applications for medium-scale permits and large-scale permits. A person who is applying for a medium-scale permit would have to provide us with information such as their proof of address, a valid ID card or passport. They would have to be above the age of 18 years and be a Guyanese citizen. For the large scale, this can also be applied for by foreigners. If the If there's a company that is going to apply, they would have to provide us with their company documents.
There are what we call specific requirements, and this is particularly more so for the large scale properties that are issued with a bit more higher standard. And rightly so, because we expect those to be sort of models and exploration activities. And if it's at the mining level, then it must be done at high international standards. So yes, there are strict requirements for large-scale properties. At the medium-scale level, especially for the prospecting permit, this is not clearly defined, and it is with the exception that they are expected to manage their property. However, for mining permits, which is the mining permit or the mining version of the medium scale property, there are some significant environmental management agreements that are quite detailed. It still needs a bit more work, and there are specific requirements under the permit, like demarcation of boundaries. In general, across the country, mining and activities related to mining has increased. This is not any different in the applications for land. We have seen a marked increase in requests for land, new entrants, persons who are literally now haven't heard of mining, never seen some parts of the interior, are interested in getting mining properties. Last year, April last year, we had a lottery in April, and we had one of our biggest sort of turnout or response to that lottery, where we issued approximately 800 and something blocks for mining, or what we refer to as mining permits. And we've seen a good uptake as well, which was not the case before. While we would have had an interest in the lottery, the initial lottery, the completion of application and retrieving the actual permit for mining was a bit low. But last year was very good.
What we use is what you call a GIS system, or Geographical Information System. Mapping 4 being the software that we use. And within using that software, there are a number of layers that we use to determine whether area is available or not. For instance, there are areas like closed, a layer would be like closed areas, reserve areas, marine lands, previous applications that were granted or active applications. And Mr. Donaldson referred to abandoned properties that were abandoned due to non-payment of rentals. Those are closed also. So we have these layers there, and then we import that fresh application into that system, and immediately we would know if the area is available or not. There is a specific system in place that we have to follow to the T. And when an application is made, that application is actually stamped with the date and the time that application is made. So if a person comes, like for instance, the same day, they won't come the same time, right? So we receive an application based on the date and the time, and we process it with that information in place. So when an application is done and is processed and an application is rejected, it's not due to anything, like favoritism or anything like that. It's due to time, date, and we stick to that, right? So everything is above board and everything is open.
The ISO certification is a quality management system. And what that does, that ensures that a specific standard is adhered to the system of processing application. This particular system is audited internally as well as internationally. And to ensure that the system adheres to the process, we are checked on a regular basis. This is annually. If anything is out of the norm, we have to flag those, we have to record those, we have to register the particular, what we call a non-conformance, and that must be clearly evident. The purpose of this particularly is to ensure that our process is transparent. And we take great pride in our ISO certification. We have recently been recertified up to now 2017. So those were some of the critical, the first 3 years of getting that ISO certification up and running and part of our system. So we're very happy to have that on board, and as Terry mentioned, it gives the system credibility.
As business operators, we need to be responsible.
Stop littering. Do the right thing.
If you're not operating in accordance with the provisions of the Mining Act and regulations, then of course you're operating illegally. And from that perspective, the provisions of the Mining Act and regulation speaks to two elements when you talk about illegal mining. Provisions of the Mining Act and regulation with respect to illegal mining speaks to two elements, one at a personal level and two at a property ownership level. So at a personal level, for you to mine, you have to be qualified in terms of you are an adult and a Guyanese citizen. At a property ownership level, you have to be awarded by the GGMC whatever property that you are mining on. So basically you have to have a permit or a license to mine.
Should we find that the operator does not have the required documentation, this is the permission from the Geology and Mines or the necessary registration documentation, we would stop that operation. If we find that the area is not an area that is allowed for mining, for example, if it's a prospecting permit, we would ask them to cease mining. If it's a land that is closed or as a reserve, we will ask them to remove from the area. However, in some cases where they may be lacking, for example, the required licenses, for example, the dredge may not have been registered or renewed for that year, our officers will have on their possession, or very likely at the very nearest mining station, they will be asked to come and get their dredge registered. So in such cases, it's not a draconian measure statement. But in cases where there is raiding or illegal mining of properties, then we would ask them to remove from that.
The Ministry of Natural Resources and the Environment is creating conditions for the responsible and sustainable exploitation of the country's natural resources. Operators are encouraged to mine with the environment in mind.
The major challenge out there is security. But not only security for the miners, but security for the officers who are out there collecting revenue, executing seizures for persons working illegally, etc. And he's very much alone. And the same people that he or she's supposed to monitor, the same person that he depends on to protect him. And this is one of the challenges that we face. Another challenge is that these operations are geographically scattered. All the operations, for example, in Madja is not in one small area. The Madja mining districts covers as far as Ichirak, which is near the Kaichur Falls. Monkey Mountain covers the part of Kobrang, Conroe, and this is geographically scattered. And although we have substations out there, the whole perspective of the situation that they can't reach all of them all the time. You can go here, you can see that there's some breach of the regulations. They make a decision, but then they can't stay there. They move to another one. And as soon as they move, the people break the law, breach the cease work order, and continue work.
My understanding is that in this year's budget, the community policing groups have been allocated a substantial amount of money. We are hoping that with those funding, we can encourage GGME and the miners themselves to be involved in securing their assets, securing their property to the extent that we all witness. Once we go there and we find something that is illegal, we will try and deal with it. But once we leave, they'll probably go back and do the same thing. So since the miners are the people who are going to be out there all the time, they have to be part and parcel of what it is we're attempting to do. So I would say that that's new in a sense, if it were to call it new, sort of system or practice that we hope will give us the results we're looking for.
Whilst it is clear that the GGMC is the one who will monitor and make sure that there's documentation on a mining operation and portions are properly licensed, it is the property holder's responsibility to ensure that their properties are well maintained. This, like any other property, is an immovable asset, and the miner is responsible to ensuring that that property is managed and maintained and secured. So I think it's important, because oftentimes we would hear that GGMC is not doing its work, but it is not in any intention to have GGMC manage all those properties. It is the property holder's responsibility. And I really want to put this out there, because it's very important that property holders manage their property. In mining permit case, they need to demarcate their property.
We at the Guyana Geology Mines Commission would like to see them manage their properties a bit more efficiently. They have the properties there, and because they're not managing them, that gives opportunity to for persons to go on the property and to conduct illegal mining. And of course, the GGMC we have to get in, we have to put resources into assisting them. But the responsibility is theirs. It's the miners' responsibility to manage the property, and we would like to see them manage their property so that we would not have, as a commission, we would not have to expend unnecessary resources in that regard.
Guyana's wildlife management and conservation regulations will enable the development of systems, including penalties and mechanisms for enforcement for the protection of local wildlife.
We must do everything we can to keep our surroundings clean.
Stop littering. Do the right thing.
I think that miners, once they know what is required of them, they're willing to comply. Of course, you would find the ones who are bent on not working in accordance with the law. But the miners' main aim is to make money, to mine gold so that they can make money. And they do not want their operation to be stopped for any reason, because if it's stopped, then they're not making money. So they try their best to operate within the confines of the law and have their operation going. The ones that that seek to be outside of the law, we have the means to deal with them. Of course, using our approach, as I mentioned before, we try to educate them, encourage them, and enforce if those fail. The Guyana Geology and Mines Commission is the regulatory body with respect to mining, and we are here to help them. We are here to help them. The provisions of the Mining Act and regulation is to encourage the orderly development of the mining sector. So we want to see people mine, but we want to see them do it within the confines of the law, taking cognizance of, for instance, environmental issues. We don't want to see irresponsible mining. We want to see responsible mining. And we have to remember that even as they seek to mine and to win the minerals from the earth, all of that is being done with more or less the consent of the people. So we want people to be assured that whatever mining that is being done, it is being done properly in a sustainable way, so that our future generation would not hold us accountable.
Check us out on the internet for this and every episode of El Dorado Shines. Just go to YouTube, search for El Dorado Shines, and start watching. Or like us on Facebook and receive instant updates.
Welcome to Guyana, the gateway to South America. A pristine haven of abundant natural resources. We are a nation born in sacrifice and enriched by our togetherness. When we play, we celebrate every effort. When we celebrate, we salute more than success. We exude our right to move forward.